Welcome to another edition of Back to the Basics, where we're still discussing the great deception. This is Elisha, your friend, your brother, and companion in the gospel. As always, it is an honor and a privilege to be able to come to you with the words of Yahuah, the words of Yahushua HaMashiach. And as always, it is my prayer that all who listens to this podcast will be gaining greater wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of the full truth. For you shall know the full truth, and the full truth shall make us free. With that in mind, let us pray. Heavenly Father, in the name of Yahuah, we thank you for opening our eyes of our understanding, teaching us to be wise as a serpent, but harmless as a dove. Teach us to be strong in you and in the power of your might. Teach us to stand fast in the liberty wherewith you have made us free, and be not entangled again with yokes of bondage. This is my prayer. In our last lesson, The Kingdom, Part 42, we discussed the subtopic, the days set aside for celebration in the kingdom of Yahuah. In this lesson, Part 43, we'll continue discussing that topic. We concluded the last lesson defining the physical shadows of greater truth. The wedding, Yom Kippur, or Day of Atonement. I'm going to address this a little more in detail in a later series. The wedding banquet, Sukkot, or the Feast of Tabernacles. This feast is known as the wedding banquet, as it is portrayed in Revelations chapter 19, and was the meaning behind the parable of the wedding banquet in Matthew chapter 22. Let's look at the festivals of Yahuah are kept in the future kingdom of Yahuah. In Yeshayahu, Isaiah 66, 19, 20, and 22 to 24 reads, I will set a sign. The Sabbath is a sign, and we must keep these passages in context. Because if not, you'll take living your life based on sound bites of Scripture. So he said, I will set a sign among them, and I will send them, some of them who survived, to the nations, to Tarshish, to the Libyans and Lydians, to Tubal and Greece, and to the distant lands that have not heard my fame or seen my glory. They will proclaim my glory as creator among the nations. How? By displaying the sign to them. 20th verse, and they will bring all your people from all the nations to my holy mountain in Jerusalem, and as an offering to Yahuah. 22nd verse says, for just as the new heavens and the new earth that I am making will continue in my presence. The Sabbath is an eternal sign. So I'm making a continue. He said, and the new heavens and the new earth that I am making will continue in my presence, says Yahuah. So will your descendants and your name continue. If you think Yahuah forgotten you, he haven't. 23rd verse, every month on Rosh Hodesh, from month to month, and every week on Shabbat, from week to week, everyone living will come to worship in my presence, says Yahuah. 24th verse, as they, who is he talking about? Who bear his Sabbath sign. So as they leave from worshiping Yahuah on the Sabbath, they will look on the corpses of the people who rebelled against me. In context, rebelled against his Sabbath. For their worm will never die, and their fire will never be quenched, but they will be this abhorrent to all humanity. In Zechariah 14:16-19 says, And it shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem shall even go up from year to year to worship the King who sits on the throne of creation, which is Yahuah of hosts. We don't worship Yahusha, we serve him who sits at Yahuwah's right hand as king of his kingdom. And keep the feast of tabernacles. And it shall be that whosoever will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to serve the king, Yahuah of hosts, even upon them shall be no rain. And if the family of Mizraim or Egypt go not up and come not, that have no rain, there shall be the plague, wherewith Yahuwah will smite the heathen that come not up to keep the feast of tabernacles. This shall be the punishment of Mizraim or Egypt, and the punishment of all nations that came not up to keep the feast of tabernacles. Let's look at Lucas 22:7-19. Then came the day of unleavened bread, when the Passover lamb must be killed. And he sent Petra, or Kepha, and Yochanan, John, saying, Go and prepare us the Passover, that we may eat. And they said unto him, to him, Where were you that we prepared? 10th verse. And he said unto them, Behold, when you are entered in the city, there shall a man meet you, bearing a pitcher of water. Follow him into the house where he enters in. 11th verse. And ye shall say unto the good man of the house, the master or rabbi shall say unto you, Where's the greatest chamber, the guest chamber, where we shall eat Passover, which is the Pekah, with my disciples? 12th verse. And he shall show you a large upper room furnished. There make ready. 13th verse. And they went and found as he had said unto them, and they made ready the Passover. And when the hour was come, he sat down, and the 12 disciples with him. And he said unto them, With desire I have desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. 16th verse. For I say unto you, I will not any more eat thereof until it be fulfilled in the kingdom of Yahuwah. 17th verse. And he took the cup and gave thanks and said, Take this and divide it among yourselves. 18th verse. For I say unto you, I will not drink of the fruit of the vine until the kingdom of Yahuwah come. Yahusha clearly declared he'll keep Passover in the kingdom of Yahuwah. 19th verse. And he took bread and gave thanks and broke it and gave unto them, saying, This is my body, which is given for you. Do this, do what? Keep Passover in remembrance of me. Here's the meaning of the weekly Sabbath. The Sabbath is a weekly celebration of Yahuwah's plan for his sons and daughters. That plan is 6,000 years of labor, then 1,000 years of Sabbath rest. The day of Yahuwah, which is the day of Yahuwah's wrath, when due to the transgression of desolation, Yahusha destroys the earth just before the beginning of the 1,000-year Sabbath. Yeshayahu 24:5-6 says, The earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, which is the Torah. They have changed the ordinances. In other words, they changed the holy feast of Yahuwah to Christo-pagan holidays. and broken the everlasting covenant of the Sabbath, changing it to a pagan Sunday. 6th verse. Therefore hath the curse devoured the earth, and they that dwell therein are desolate. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth are burned up, and few men are left. Speaking of the day of Yahuah, the author of Keppah, Shani, or 2 Peter, explains that in the prophetic language of Yahuah is 1,000 years. He frames a time frame for this age from creation until the end of the plan of Yahuah when this earth is destroyed. Keppah Shani, or 2 Peter 3:3-8 says, know this first of all, that in the last days mockers will come with their mocking, following after their own lusts. 4th verse, and saying, where's the promise of his coming? For ever since the fathers fell asleep, all continues just as it was from the beginning of creation. 5th verse, for when they maintain this, it escapes their notice that by the word of Yahuah the heavens existed long ago, and the earth was framed out of the water and by water. That's Genesis 1:1. 6th verse, through which the world at that time was destroyed, which Lucifer fell, leading a rebellion on earth, being flooded with water, being boundary creation. When after flooding the earth, after the fall of Lucifer, Yahuah started over and established the 7-day Sabbath covenant. Let me say that again. Being boundary, beginning boundary, creation, when after flooding the earth, after the fall of Lucifer, Yahuah started over and established the 7-day Sabbath covenant. 7th verse, but by his word the present heavens and earth are being reserved for fire, kept for the day of judgment and destruction of ungodly men. Ending boundary, when after the 1,000-year Sabbath rest, Yahuah destroys the earth by fire. 8th verse, but do not let this one fact escape your notice, beloved, that your Yahuah one day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years like one day. What Keppah, Peter, is saying is in response to the mockers who mocked the second coming because it hasn't occurred yet. Keppah is saying if you understood Yahuah's plan, you would never mock it because the second coming doesn't occur until the 6,000th year. To step up the Sabbath kingdom or set up the Sabbath kingdom, Keppah is explaining that from Genesis, the first chapter, through Revelations, or Shazam, the 22nd, the 7-day Sabbath covenant is a physical to spiritual parallel, with each day being 1,000 years, 6,000 years. We work as Yahuah did, labor under the curse of Adam, and the last 1,000 years we enter into Yahuah's rest, when the curse of Adam is lifted and creation is liberated. And that's a good place to shout. When we enter into Yahuah's rest, the Sabbath kingdom, only if we keep the 7th-day Sabbath as Yahuah did. Now you see we have 6 days. Each day is 1,000 years. Have 2,000-year period between each time, which is the first advent before the second coming. Hebrews 4:1-13 talks about the Sabbath rest for the people of Yahuah. Therefore, since the promise of entering his rest still stands, because the Sabbath covenant is still in effect, let us be careful that none of you be found to have fallen short of it. How would you fall short of it? By failing to keep the Sabbath. Second verse. For we also have had the gospel preached to us, just as they did. But the message they have heard was of no value to them, because those who heard it did not combine it with faith. By keeping the Sabbath, we are expressing our faith in the plan of Yahuah and his coming kingdom, that Yahushua will establish that kingdom in the 6,000th year. Third verse. Now we who have believed in what? In Yahushua, King of the Sabbath. We enter into that rest, just as Yahuwah has said. So I declare on an oath in my anger, they shall never enter my rest. And yet this work has been finished since the recreation of the world. Yahuwah himself kept the Sabbath and commanded that we do too. The fourth commandment. Fourth verse. For somewhere he has spoken about the seventh day, not Sunday, not one day in seven, but the seventh day. In these words, and on the seventh day, Yahuwah rested from all his work. Fifth verse. And again in the passage above, he says, they who do not keep my Sabbath shall never enter my rest. Sixth verse. It still remains that some, the remnant of the sons of Yahuwah, will enter that rest. And those who formerly had the gospel preached to them did not go in because of their disobedience to the Sabbath. Seventh verse. Therefore Yahuwah again set a certain day, calling it today, when a long time later he spoke through David, as was said before. Today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts. Against his Sabbath. Eighth verse. For if Joshua had given them, the Israelites, rest for entering the promised land, Yahuwah would not have spoken later about another day, which is the Sabbath rest is yet to come, like we stated in verse 1. Ninth verse. There remains then a Sabbath rest for the people of Yahuwah. For anyone who enters Yahuwah's rest also rests from his own work, just as Yahuwah did from his. You must keep the Sabbath, just as Yahuwah did on the seventh day. 11th verse. Let us therefore make every effort to enter that rest by being obedient to the Sabbath, so that no one will fall by following their example of disobedience to the Sabbath set by the false religion of Christianity. 12th verse. For the word of Yahuwah is quick and powerful, or living and active. It's sharper than any double-edged sword. It penetrates even to dividing the soul and the ruach, or the spirit, joints and the marrow. It judges the thoughts and the attitudes of the heart. 13th verse. Nothing in all creation is hidden from Yahuwah's sight. Everything is uncovered and laid bare before the eyes of him whom we must give account. For why, in context, we did not keep the Sabbath. So each week we celebrate the Sabbath, looking forward to Yahushua's return and the establishment of the kingdom of Yahuwah. It is the sign we display back to Yahuwah as he looks down on mankind, looking for those who truly believe his word and take the time to celebrate with him the coming kingdom of Yahuwah. If you don't keep the Sabbath, you are a lawbreaker, a worker of iniquity. By breaking the fourth commandment, those who break the Sabbath covenant will die, and their corpses will be an eternal reminder as those who keep the Sabbath step over their dead bodies to enter the kingdom of Yahuah. Only those who bear the sign to the nations, or ensigns, and proclaim Yahuwah's glory as creator. The Sabbath is Yahuwah's stamp on creation. They are the only ones who will enter the kingdom of Yahuwah. Yeshua Yahuwah, Isaiah 66:19 through 20 and 22 through 24 says, I will set a sign. The Sabbath is a sign, and we must keep these passages in context. I will set a sign among them, and I will send some of them who survive to the nations, to Tarshish, to the Libyans, to the Lydians, to Tubal in Greece, and to the distant lands that have not heard my fame or seen my glory. They will proclaim my glory as creator among the nations. How? By displaying the sign to them. 20th verse. And they will bring all your people from all the nations to my holy mountain in Jerusalem as on an offering to Yahuwah. 22nd verse. For just as the new heavens and the new earth that I am making will continue in my presence, the Sabbath is an eternal sign, saying Yahuwah, so will your descendants and your name continue. Every month on Rosh Hadesh, from month to month, and every week on Shabbat, from week to week, everyone living will come to worship in my presence, says Yahuwah, as they who bear his Sabbath sign leave from worshiping Yahuwah on the Sabbath. They will look on the corpses of the people who rebelled against me. In context, rebelled against the Sabbath. For their worm will never die, and their fire will never be quenched, but they will be abhorrent to all humanity. Yahushua and his disciples kept the festival of Yahuwah. Yochanan, or John, 2nd chapter, 23rd verse. Now when he was in Jerusalem at the Passover, during the feast, many believed in his name, observing his sign which he was doing. And Yochanan 7 and 2 and 10 says, now the feast of Yahuwah, the feast of booths, or the feast of tabernacles, was near. But when his brothers had gone up to the feast, then he himself also went up, not publicly, but as if in secret. Matthew 18:20 through 21. 20th verse says, when they desired of him to tarry longer time with them, he consented not. 22nd verse, but bade them farewell, saying, I must by all means keep this feast of Passover, unleavened bread that cometh in Jerusalem. Other words, he was saying, I have to go be in Jerusalem so I can keep Passover. So Yahushua kept Passover. In Acts 2 and 1, and when the day of Pentecost, which is the feast of Shabbat, was fully come, they were all with one accord in one place. In Matthew 20 and 16, for Shaul, Paul had determined not to sail by Ephesus because he would not spend the time in Asia, for he hasted, if it were possible for him, to be at Jerusalem the day of Pentecost, the feast of Shabbat. So if they kept these laws, we need to keep them. And Lucas 22 and 1, now the feast of unleavened bread drew near, which is called Passover, because that is when the Passover lamb was eaten. Passover is actually the night before. Lucas 22 and 1 says, then came the day of unleavened bread, the 7th verse. And when the Passover lamb must be killed and eaten. 8th verse. And he sent Pepper, Peter, and Yochanan, John, saying, Go and prepare us the Passover that we may eat. 15th verse. And he said unto them, With desire I have desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. For I say unto you, I will not any more eat thereof until it be fulfilled in the kingdom of Yahuah. And he took the cup and gave thanks and said, Take this and divide it among yourselves. For I say unto you, I will not drink of the fruit of the vine until the kingdom of Yahuah shall come. Yahushua clearly declares he will keep Passover in the kingdom of Yahuah. 19th verse, and he took bread and gave thanks and brake it, and gave unto them, saying, This is my body, which is given for you. This do what? Keep Passover in remembrance of me. In Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 11:20-26, he said, For I have received from Yahushua that which I also delivered unto you, that Yahushua fulfilled the Passover, that Yahushua the Messiah, in the night which he was betrayed on Passover, took bread. And when he had given thanks, he brake it and said, This is my body, the Passover lamb, which is sacrificed for you. Do this, keep Passover in remembrance of me. In the same way, he took the cup also after supper, saying, This cup is the blood shed to consummate the marriage covenant of Yahuah, is the new covenant in my blood. Passover is the proper sacrifice in the new covenant, not Easter. Do this. Put your faith in Yahushua's sacrifice by keeping Passover. As often as you drink it in remembrance of me, for as often as you eat this bread and drink this cup, each year on the 14th of Abib, the Passover, you proclaim or express your faith in Yahushua the death, the Passover lamb, until he comes. This is a good place to stop. Join me for our next lesson, the Kingdom, Part 44, where we will continue discussing the subtopic, the days set aside for celebration in the Kingdom of Yahuah. Again, if you're listening to this podcast, just know that we are in the hour of the Great Awakening, where Yahuah is gathering back to himself the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Someone asked a question the other day, how do you know if you are one of the lost sheep of the house of Israel? He said, I know that I love Yahuah and the Torah and keep the Sabbath. I told them that this is the very indication that you are one of the lost sheep of the house of Israel, because Yahuah has written his laws on your heart. And when you hear the message of the law, the Ruach HaKodesh, the Spirit of Yahuah, quickens that truth that is in his law, that is written in your heart, that causes you to respond to the message of the law. That is how Shaul identified the lost sheep of the house of Israel who were living among the Gentiles even in his day. Remember, Yahushua was only sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, of whom Yahuwah had scattered into all Gentile nations, not to the whole world. And let's be specific. The only nationality of people that has been scattered to every nation according to Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, is what is called today black people. Those same people who has been enslaved and oppressed even to this day. The other group of people that Yahuwah will identify and also receive an inheritance from the lost sheep of the house of Israel in the kingdom of Yahuwah are the Gentiles, the good stranger, that stranger who sojourned with them, who has joined themselves with Israel by humbling themselves and accepting the laws and ordinances of Yahuwah in their heart. So it is my prayer that this truth will reach all who will believe it, receive it, and live it. But to do that, you must be bold as a lion, but yet harmless as a dove. And if you are listening and you are one of the lost sheep of the house of Israel, welcome home. And if you are not one of the lost sheep of Israel, but you accept the laws of Yahuah and you embrace these truths, Yahuah is coming back for you. Again, welcome to the family. Again, I want to thank all of you who have been listening to this podcast from day one. I know that your life has not been the same, but Yahuah has revealed these truths to you and your life has changed significantly because mine has. If you're listening for the very first time, I don't believe for 1 second that you just happen to fall upon or come upon this podcast. I believe that it is a divine connection. It is divine purpose for you to find this podcast, because it is an answer to prayers that you've been praying, questions that you had that didn't have answers. I know that Yahuah is giving you revelation and you're feeling peace because you now hear the truth. And if that is you, I want you to hit that subscribe button so you can get all the lessons that you missed. And when you do subscribe, I want you to go all the way down to the bottom. Start listening in sequence from lesson 1 up until now. And I guarantee you, by the time you finish, or before you even finish, your life will be changed forever. Again, don't forget to share this podcast with all your family and friends. Don't forget to leave your comments. Your comments are very important to me. I respond to each and every comment. Again, if you'd like to follow along with me in this series, I recommend you get this book, The Kingdom by Rav Shaul. This is Elisha, your friend, your brother, and companion in the gospel. Until next time, be blessed.